If you see a dog running or someone shouting on the street, you immediately know they're alive. But what if that same dog is asleep? You still know it's alive, but the obvious signs, the movement, the noise, are completely gone. So how do we actually define what makes something living? When you look at a dormant plant or a resting animal, there is no visible growth or motion. To find the true metric of life, we have to look entirely past what the naked eye can see. Microscopically, organisms are highly organized. Molecules build cells, which interlock into complex tissue matrices. But chaotic external forces constantly pressure the organism, causing these bonds to warp and fracture. To prevent death, the body actively repairs the damage, constantly moving new molecules in. This means that life, at its core, is driven by this invisible, relentless molecular movement. Even when a creature appears completely still, this internal maintenance job never stops. All of this continuous repair work requires energy and raw materials. To get them, an organism has to pull carbon-based energy sources from the outside world into its own body, a process we simply call nutrition. Because no individual organism can control the chaotic environment around it, different species have evolved highly specialized strategies to capture these materials. Autotrophs, like green plants, use a strategy perfectly suited for stationary organisms. They pull raw, inorganic energy directly from their surroundings. Through photosynthesis, they take atmospheric carbon dioxide and water and use sunlight absorbed by their chlorophyll to trigger a chemical reaction. The light energy acts as a biological catalyst, bonding the simple carbon and water particles into large, stable carbohydrate structures. These stored carbohydrates provide the energy the plant needs to maintain its own structure. But they also form the biological energy reserve that nearly all other complex life on Earth relies on. That brings us to heterotrophs, animals and humans. Instead of building energy from sunlight, we survive by consuming the complex carbon structures that autotrophs have already built. A single-celled organism can absorb food right through its surface, but in large multicellular bodies, most of our cells are buried deep inside, far away from the outside environment. Simple diffusion won't work, so we rely on the alimentary canal. This entire system operates as a single continuous processing tube running through the body, explicitly designed to dismantle complex biological matter step by step. The breakdown begins with physical crushing in the mouth. Teeth tear the food apart, while saliva introduces biological catalysts, enzymes, that specifically target and dissolve complex starches into simpler sugars. The material then moves down into the stomach. Here, a highly acidic medium activates specific protein-digesting enzymes, systematically dismantling the structural proteins within the food. Next, it enters the small intestine. Secretions from the liver and pancreas neutralize the stomach acid and break down the remaining fats and carbohydrates until everything is reduced to uniform, simple molecules. To get these simplified molecules to the rest of the body, the inner lining of the intestine is covered in tiny finger-like projections called villi. These maximize the surface area, absorbing the molecules directly into the bloodstream. But this entire digestive pipeline is really just a preparation system. It breaks down and transports external carbon to our cells, but it hasn't actually generated the functional energy required for structural repair. The nutrients now floating in the bloodstream are just raw fuel. To actually power the cellular maintenance machines, that fuel has to be ignited. This requires a completely separate process, respiration. We take in oxygen from the environment specifically to react with these distributed food sources. Inside the cells, this chemical reaction between oxygen and glucose fractures the carbon molecules. This release of chemical energy generates a uniform, universal energy currency known as ATP. ATP is the precise fuel source that drives the constant, microscopic molecular movement. It is the currency that pays for the body's continuous structural repairs. When we look again at a sleeping human, the outward stillness is deceiving. Beneath the surface, an immense biological effort is taking place. Even in a state of total rest, the alimentary and respiratory systems are operating at a massive scale, processing raw materials, generating more ATP, and constantly rebuilding decaying tissues. Living creatures are never truly at rest. we are constantly managing a perfectly balanced, non-stop internal supply chain. In the end, being alive is an act of physical resistance. It is a highly orchestrated, invisible war to maintain our internal structure against the